One of the great things I see happening in the Great Convergence is that we are gradually erasing what I consider to be an artificial, and many consider to be an artificial distinction between what is natural and what is supernatural. As we've traced the development of science over the last century, we kind of went from this kind of increasing skepticism about whether there could be a God, or if there is a God, whether this God could be aware of us in a universe that's 15 billion light years across, to the reawakening of the possibility of God through actually looking more carefully at nature than we ever have before. Right now, if you look at the cutting edge of science, we're asked to embrace notions about how the universe works that are so apparently wild and crazy that if we didn't have really good scientific proof that such notions could be possible, we would pretty much relegate the people who advocate for such things to the padded cell, thinking they're crazy. Big bangs and supernovas and black holes and all this. But right now, we're really realizing that what actually has a lot of fact behind it is so wild and so amazingly wondrous, far more wondrous than we'd ever imagined, that beside those things, the idea of a God who could have conscious awareness of us is actually pretty small potatoes. But it's also then opened up our view expanded our view radically of what is natural to such an extent that what was previously considered to be supernatural seems to be almost pale in comparison to what is actually factually natural. We're starting to then see that line that we put between the two is really pretty blurred, and increasingly many of us are coming to wonder if there is anything, any distinction between natural and supernatural at all. That if energy precedes matter, if that energy is love, and that love creates matter, well then how are you going to then say, well, this kind of matter is this is natural, and there's something better than natural, better than something that God made up? If nature itself, if all of creation is God's self-expression, well, how can we denigrate that as merely natural and then waiting for some sort of God who will intervene within the natural order and call that there is something special, more special than what God has done by in the creation of the natural world, in the processes that make it? So I began to wonder, for instance, if you think about people who lived 200 years ago, if they were to envision what could really make for a better world, and really let their imaginations go wild, they might say, well, gosh, if we all had flying carpets, that would be really something. There was flying carpets were part of the fantasy imagination of ancient times, and yet in our modern world, we have better than flying carpets. My flying carpet has air conditioning and a stereo and resists the wind. It's called a Mini Cooper. But we also have flying carpets that actually haul cargo across great distances or take us to faraway places like France and England and Saudi Arabia and so forth. We actually have in our hands power, or exercise power, that is on the level that the ancients could only ever fantasize about, and yet because it's all natural, we think it's just very mundane, and we don't see the sacral value and potential in these very things. If somebody who lived just even 200 years ago could envision a time when we could do a mind meld with someone 3,000 miles away or even 300 miles away and communicate through our minds with them, we'd probably think, oh my gosh, this is like Messiah level power. We could do so much good. We could bring the kingdom of God through this incredible communications, and yet with a simple cell phone these days, we can do that. We can communicate across large distances, or with the internet, etc. We can actually do these things, but because we consider them natural, not supernatural, we again fail to see the sacral value. If somebody did a mind meld, we'd be like, oh my gosh, wow, that's so amazing. Well, how about the mind meld you're able to do, in the next 5 minutes? Why are we not reflecting about, well, how can we use all of these powers for the good? Perhaps even we could affirm that God is actually raising up in our generation amazing superpowers that are so super that they make the natural supernatural. Finally, I think about another implication of this, of which there are many, in the medical community. Jesus said, far greater things than these shall you do. And yet when someone goes in at the Nebraska Medical Center and takes out a cancerous tumor from someone's brain, we think that's pretty impressive, but we don't think of this person as some spiritual saint, because what they were doing was a natural procedure. That same thing would have happened through the action of a faith healer or some guru who sits on a mountain. You bring somebody there and their tumor is healed. We think, oh my God, this person's so powerful. We need to really pay attention to this person, and isn't God good? Well, why do we draw this distinction between the guru on the mountain who could heal somebody through an act by placing a hand, and the activity of someone who may be as broken as you and I, who can actually do the same thing? We've actually, through centuries of looking at God's revelation in the human body and studying it carefully, have created a situation where actual broken people who aren't gurus sitting on hilltops doing faith healings, if they even are possible, we are actually able to do those very same things. We are truly doing greater things than miracles of healing than even Jesus did. And the only reason why we don't pay, I think, a lot more attention to the sacral value is because we think of that as being natural. Well, where's the miracle here? There's incredible miracles happening every day at the Nebraska Medical Center and at medical centers clear across this country. People are actively engaging in the very healing ministries of Jesus. Would that we would only see all of nature, all of the natural order, as infused with the supernatural, and that God's activity in our world is not a break from what is, but actually is an organic continuation of what is. I think that we would find ourselves surrounded by the kingdom of God, or the God's realm, far more deeply than we ever thought it was.